Sorry, I had to take that call because it was a delivery guy bringing me a box of George Salas's Sea Above, Sun Below. I was down to three copies. I've been down to one, two, and now three because I keep finding them here and there around the house. I think the dog's been reading George Salas, and if you know, it's one of the marks of a great author is when dogs sneak off to read them. Dogs don't like us to know they can read, and well, so anyway, that's where I went, and I thought I should come back and just tell you that this €10 pocketbook is worth the money for many reasons. The cover, the heft, the pocketability of it, but also a story called A Young Guy in His Career, which may be one of David's best, but I don't know because I like Fur Baby and, well, I like I like all of his stories. But in this one, the young guy of the title decides to become a detective, and his first job is he gets a finger and he's got to figure out something about it. I can't remember. But his parents decided to celebrate his career after he gave up and decided there was nothing he could do with the finger. His parents got the finger and they put it in a kind of a glass case or something like that. I can't remember. I didn't read it all over because I wanted to get back to you quickly. But this is the scene that you come to in the book that I love. One of them. So the next day, which is both tonight and now, Mom and Dad took me out to Big Ethel's Pig Roast, a very popular watering hole in town where you have to wait with about 100 other people in this place that looks like a pig pen for your disc to buzz and light up. This indicates that it is your turn to line up to get slaughtered. Just kidding. It actually means that after an hour of restless milling around in the herd with your fellow pigs, you can now sit down and order and eat at Big Ethel's Pig Roast. The whole Big Ethel experience is very geared to making you feel part of the farm, of a farm. When the waiter came, he spelled his name upside down on the slick white meat paper table covering by squirting from a tube of barbecue sauce. "My name is Seth," he said, as he squirted Seth upside down. "All of this meat packing paper is extremely sanitary. You may use some of the plastic spoons to scrape off my name and eat the sauce when the time comes." Dad ordered the pork three ways platter. I ordered the burly farmhand, and Mom ordered the all-you-can-eat farm wife's suckling slaughter. Just think, we marveled, we'll be able to try each of 7 sauces. About 20 minutes into our wait, to keep us all head up for the pork to come, Seth dropped by a galvanized bucket with 7 squirt bottles of sauces in it. It was during this wait that Mom and Dad decided to give me my career-launching gift. I was pretty excited. What can you give a budding detective that's rectangular in shape, I'd been wondering. I tore off the paper. After the paper, there was a box, a deep rectangular J.C. Penney's box, of all things. Was this some kind of joke, I wondered? So I asked, him being a detective. "No," my parents shouted, but it sounded like whispering drowned out as it was by the din and roar of the restaurant. I lifted the lid, and there inside was a beautiful glass box with the finger in it. Crooked at a 45-degree angle like one of those fake fingers they display rings on at jewelry counters, or that ladies have on top of their vanities and use when they take their rings off at the end of an arduous day of ring wearing. There's a little knob at the base we had to slightly screw the finger onto, but we succeeded, they said. A very nice Mr. Frings sold us the box. She said that with these ring display boxes, normally people place their rings on the manufacturer-supplied fake finger, but that if we wanted to install a more personal finger, it was all right by her. I'm glad to know Mrs. Frings was much more congenial to you than she was to me. She was practically indifferent to me. To the front of the box they had affixed with cellophane tape a brass plate with these words etched on it: Walter Ballou, on the occasion of his first case as a detective. It would have been nice if they'd put super detective. I'm still not sure what made me. I guess it was trying to cover my embarrassment at receiving an award. But I lifted the lid of the glass display box and started to unscrew the finger. It turned and turned on the little anchor, but wouldn't come off, so instead of merely screwing, I pulled and screwed in concert. Then the thing suddenly pulled off. With the unexpected release, my arm flipped back and hit a waiter who was passing behind me at that moment. The sudden contact caused my hand to open in reflex, and the finger catapulted out of my grip and through the air and went somewhere. "Oh my!" I said. "I have lost the finger." Mom patted me on the hand. "It's all right, Walter. I followed the finger's trajectory with my eyes. It landed on top of that gentleman's pork platter." So she pointed to a table where a family man with his wife and 3 hungry children were about to tear into the mounded pork platters that had just been set down in front of them. His wife was slapping the children to make them stop squirting each other with the 7 bottles of sauces. The man shouted from his crumpled, beefy face, "Would you please try to reach their brains, Latrice?" "You heard your dad," Latrice said. "Use your brains." "My brains stink," said the boy that appeared to be the middle child, about 11. Mom said, "Would you like me to handle and extricate this situation, Walter?" It had reached the point it probably required a mom's touch, so I said, "Sure." But I went with her to the table. Bless all of you. But I went with her to the table of the ravenous family to back her up. The man of the house was slicing like a psychopath into his hill of pork when Mom tapped him on the shoulder and introduced herself and her business. "Excuse me, sir," she said. "I am Mrs. Edna Ballou, wife of former Dr. Wilbur Ballou, and this is our son Walter." "Hello," I said. The man looked at us both with unwelcoming eyes. The whites of his unwelcoming eyes were an unpleasant copper color. Despite a discouraging beginning of our intercourse, Mom plowed on. "I'd like to discuss your pork platter with you, if I may. First of all, which of the many named platters did you select?" "The bloated shote." "I see. I considered the bloated shote, but I finally chose the farm wife's suckling daughter." "The bloated shote comes with a pig's tail." "I have to alert you that something belonging to my family has wound up in your bloated shote." He glared at his bloated shote and appeared satisfied with it as it stood. He put the seal of approval on it by squirting more sauce on it. His wife and 3 children were well into their platters and chewing rapidly. They watched and chewed. Mom pointed to the pinky that had catapulted onto his mountain of pork. That pinky there actually flew from our table to yours. Please don't eat it." The man thrust his mouth and chin forward. "What are you talking about? That's not a finger. That's a pig's tail. A pig's tail comes with the bloated shote. Hey, what are you trying to pull here? You're trying to get my pig's tail by claiming it's a finger from your table? You go back to your own table and get your own pig's tail." "Sir, if you will just allow me to reach down and get the finger and wipe some of the barbecue sauce off it, you will see that it is your ordinary finger that is catapulted over here from our table. Anyone could have mistaken it for a pig's tail. It doesn't mean you're a dumb oaf, not by any means, that you've mistaken it for a pig's tail. That's not what I'm implying at all." As Mom reached for the pinky, the man jabbed it with his fork and crammed the whole thing in his mouth and chewed like crazy. He stared triumphantly at Mom and me. She looked at me. "Oh, Walter, I'm so sorry. I tried my best, but this man has eaten your finger." Just then their waitress delivered a pig's tail in a white bowl. "I'm sorry, I forgot your pig's tail. Here it is now." "No, you didn't forget my pig's tail," the man said. "I just now ate and swallowed my pig's tail, but I don't mind eating too." Mom said to the waitress, "He doesn't seem to realize he has eaten my son's finger, not a pig's tail. He is on an altogether different plane psychologically." The waitress had slightly crossed eyes that made her look like she considered everything deeply and from many angles. Thus it was a shock when she said bluntly, "All I know is they said table 6B didn't get his pig's tail. Take him his pig's tail right now, or it's your ass. He's a troublemaker. Latrice whooped and threw her hand over her mouth to keep from ejecting Pork when she heard her husband described as a troublemaker. The kids bounced on their buttocks and sang, "Dad's a troublemaker, Dad eats people's fingers, Dad's a cannibal," and various things. The waitress got out of there. She was very busy and frazzled and did not have time to adjudicate disagreements between customers, especially when one of the parties was already a byword at Big Ethel's. Dad had gotten lonely sitting by himself, so he came on over, all smiles and congeniality as usual. He's a great asset as a person, and you can never go wrong if you stick to him in the middle of a situation. All his positive vibes really put the hex on conflict and what have you. Excuse me while I take up a moment of your time, but I am Dr. Wilbur Ballou. Everyone knows the AMA is a joke and has smeared the reputation of many a medical innovator. Be that as it may, I couldn't help noticing from my chair over there that you ate my son's pinky and refused to acknowledge the same, stubbornly clinging to your false notion it was a pig's tail. All I can say is, my. The man's children took the opportunity of this distraction to squirt each other with sauces again. Instead of calling them off, their mother gaped at us and stuffed Pork in her mouth and chewed and washed it down with beer. Finally, the youngest kid, a girl, got squirted in the eye with hot sauce and started bawling, "It burns!" Latrice took time out from eating and stared at us to slap the middle kid, the boy that had said his brain stank, and to say, "Didn't I tell you? Look what you've done. You'll have to answer for putting out your sister's eye with hot sauce." And the two oldest kids, the slap boy included, saying, "Let's sue the socks off Big Ethel. Big Ethel's sauce made Dana go blind." Then the oldest kid, a girl, got into a struggle with Dana, trying to tip her head back so she could invert a glass of ice water into the eye and wash it out. Mom folded her arms and tapped her toe and shook her head. She said to the man, "Your children have got to learn how to behave in public, or what's next? Television? Prison?" Dad cajolingly said, with genuine cajolement, "Not the fake stuff. As a man familiar with the ways of internal organs, generic internal situations and surgery, I'd like to suggest immediate extraction of that finger from your gut. At the very least, an x-ray to show that you were wrong and really pig-headed to eat it. In our journeys from childhood, we often eat things we shouldn't. Even pork might not be advisable under certain conditions. In my basement, I have a table, some ether, and a scalpel if you'd like to try a few things." "How much?" Latrice said. Her fork still stood still in midair with Pork. The three little monkeys shouted, We want to watch Dad get cut to shreds." Mom said to the man, "It's not so hard to relax and go with it if you tell yourself it doesn't have to be fun." The family man got pretty bellicose about the whole thing after that. He raised both hands and waved them. He didn't care how much pork came out of his mouth, or that sauce ran down his chin, or that his three bulging offspring sniggered. I'd never seen a man so determined to look stupid with pork. "Matter D!" he screamed. "Get the Matter D over here right now." A man in a long white apron showed up after the family man had shouted long enough. The Mater D was holding a meat cleaver. He crossed his arms over his barrel chest. He looked more like a mascot than a Matter D to me. I didn't feel like arguing his station in life with him. I just thought, well, here's one more hurdle toward finally getting to sit down and eat our pork platters in peace. Just let it happen, Walter, and then you can move on with your life. "What seems to be the matter here?" the Matter D bellowed over the general roar of the place, and his voice carried. "There's no standing in the aisles at Big Ethel's. Either sit down or move on." The man pointed at Dad like he was murder itself. "This guy over here is going around offering to do surgery to see what's down there." Matter D shoved his cleaver against Dad's gut, not so as to injure or eradicate him, just to put him on alert. It was a friendly warning, but not a friendly gesture, if you can appreciate the distinction. "Listen, Buster, people come to Big Ethel's because they want their share of pork and then some. God said, be fruitful and multiply, and the pigs took it to heart. People began to wonder, what are we going to do with all these pigs? They're everywhere, getting into everything. And so Big Ethel's came into being. And the pork lovers and the people that were worried, because there were so many pigs everywhere, saw it, and it was good." His whole build-up was pretty pompous. I was ready to explode after 2 seconds of it. He didn't know that the whole purpose of a maitre d' was to shine. Dad was trying his darndest to smile through the rain, but through years of coming to know him, I could tell all he wanted was for the maitre d' to take that cleaver out of his gut. But he was too polite and scared to death to ask. And because people come to Big Ethel's to have the times of their lives and to forget all their troubles, the last thing they want is to plan a surgery. Now I suggest you get back to your table and enjoy yourself, or I'll start doing some surgery of my own. He nudged Dad a couple of times severely with the meat cleaver. That gave us the idea the maitre d' wasn't our kind of surgeon. All right, Dad said, but I feel I've been misrepresented all the way through. And, yeah. It was a finger, the middle kid piped up. I saw it fly over there to here, and then you put it in that old meat grinder of yours and pulverized it. You pulverized it is what you did. Shut up, Ethan, and eat your corn, Latrice said. That'll be the day your dad eats a finger from another table. I guess if anybody knows a pig's tail when he sees it, your daddy knows a pig's tail. The man stared at his wife coldly and said, as if he meant something else by it, I sure do know a pig's tail when I see it. Well, you can read the whole story in the book, but wasn't that fun?